Welcome, writers, readers, and friends to the Authors Talking Bookish podcast. I'm Donna Norman Carbone, author of All That Is Sacred.
And I'm Hope Gibbs, author of Where the Grass Grows Blue.
We're two debut writers traditionally published by a small publishing house, bringing to you all the experiences that we as authors learn the hard way, so you don't have to.
We'll give you insights from the inception of a book idea to publication and beyond. And along the way, we'll share our love of books from the writer's perspective.
Hello, welcome back, friends. This is episode 32, and today we are joined by an award-winning middle grade author by the name of Libby McNamee. And just a little bit about Libby. She is one of the founding members of the Bookish Road Trip, which is something that Hope and I are also part of. So we're excited to talk to her about her fantastic books, all her awards, and Bookish Road Trip. I'm Donna Carbone, and I am joined by Hope Gibbs. Hi, Hope.
Hey, Donna, how are you?
I'm great. How are you?
I am so excited about this episode today. One of my favorite parts about our podcast is when we get to interview other authors, and maybe it's because I'm Bookish Road Trip. That's what I do over there. But I am so excited to talk to Libby and to meet her. And I'm just going to go on and add her to our podcast. Libby, hello. How are you?
Hi there. I'm great. Thank you so much for having me.
Hi, Libby.
Hi, Donna.
Well, we are so excited to have you.
It's such an honor, and I love what you are doing with this podcast. It's one of my regulars that I listen to.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Well, before we get started, we just want to give everyone a little bit about your background and your very impressive bio, by the way. So just so you know, Libby is a lawyer, speaker, award-winning author of 2 upper grade novels, Susanna's Midnight Ride, The Girl Who Won the Revolutionary War, and Dolley Madison and the War of 1812, America's First Lady, and their study guides. She is also the co-editor of The Epic Story of 1776 and The Epic Story of America 1777 to 1779. A native of Boston, Libby lives in Richmond, Virginia with her husband and son, who will be a freshman at Notre Dame this fall. She is a graduate of Georgetown University and Catholic University of Law, and she was also a major in the U.S. Army JAG Corps, serving in South Korea, Bosnia, Germany, and Washington State. Well, first off, thank you for your service.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much. It was quite an experience.
Yeah, I bet. What brought you from the military to publishing historical novels?
Oh gosh, that's a loaded question. There's lots of different life events. I started practicing law, and I just really missed something. I kind of missed just the creative outlet of writing, and I started writing on the side. And then once I had my son, I was staying home with my son, so I started writing local travel articles. And then I had to go all these boring history sites. And once I got there, I realized I actually really loved history, and I loved the stories. And my son became a huge history buff too. So it took me a long time of trying to figure out what genre I wanted to write in. And I've got, lots of manuscripts in my, desk drawer here, if anyone's interested. But then once I finally heard the story of Susanna Bowling, and I was all in. So it was really neat to I appreciated finding my niche, because it was hard to get there. Yeah. I spent a few years kind of flailing around, knowing I wanted to write fiction, but I couldn't quite figure out what.
And this character, and I hate to say it, I had never heard of her, but I listened to an interview, and when you described this young 16-year-old girl who was instrumental in the Revolutionary War, can you give us a little background, a little synopsis about her amazing, not only her life, but her courage?
Oh, amazing girl. It was late in the American Revolution, late May 1781. So we were losing, and the only thing that was keeping us going was France. And all of the contributions from France were because of General Lafayette. And Susanna was on her family's plantation down in Petersburg, Virginia. And unbeknownst to her, all of a sudden Cornwallis came marching down her lane with all of his entire British Southern Army in tow. And it was a complete surprise to the British as well. He had broken away from General Clinton in New York, but he had heard that General Lafayette was at the halfway house, which was just on 10 miles on the other side of the river from her house. So she overheard his plans that night as she was serving dinner as they quartered. And so she snuck out of her house in the middle of the night, grabbed a neighbor's horse, and rode the 10 miles. And as I started to research, I realized, oh my gosh, she had to actually come back before the sun came up so that they didn't know that she was gone. So really just an amazing story that never really made its way into the history books. And that was kind of one of those things which I call in writing historical fiction is a black hole, where you've got a built-in plot here, you've got these events, but then there's these black holes that are kind of fun to research and make an educated guess about why certain things happened. And all I can presume is that her family was very wealthy and aristocratic, and maybe they considered what she did to be unladylike at the time. And but then once I published the book and I started meeting people in the area, they were telling me, oh, this was one of my bedtime stories when I was a kid, and I forgot all about it. And then, so it was neat as I researched it of thinking, I'm from Massachusetts. So I was thinking at the beginning of all this, all I think about is Lexington and Concord, and, oh, there's a whole Southern part, huh? And it was neat, kind of just almost like peeling back an onion of all these different layers and looking at the chronology and realizing, oh my gosh, Cornwallis really was there then. And this all really happened. And even looking at what the moonlight was like on the night that she made her ride was really amazing. And there's a story that's well known in Virginia of a man named Jack Jewett who saved Governor Thomas Jefferson from capture in Charlottesville. And that ties into the end of it. So that was really neat of realizing, oh, this is all kind of, part and parcel of the same like triggering events one after another. And then of course, Lafayette played cat and mouse in Cornwallis and trapped him in Yorktown. And the rest, as they say, is history. So,
yes, it actually is.
I know you as in, teaching
As
English
teacher.
AP classes.
Yeah.
So it was really kind of exciting to uncover this story, kind of like the movie Hidden Figures.
Yeah.
I felt like every revolutionary story had been told, Molly Pitcher and Sybil Luddington in Connecticut. And so it was really kind of neat of feeling like I'd been dropped with this, golden parcel in my lap. And I actually heard the story about a friend who was married to her descendant. So that's how I first found out the story.
Oh, that's neat. I was going to ask you how you first started researching and happened upon the story of this woman.
It was actually at a funeral. I met a man who he was married to her descendant.
Oh,
So
wow.
he told me the story and kind of was like, this is amazing. I don't have time to write it. I heard you're a writer. You should, take the story and run. So, and then
that sounds like kismet.
It was really amazing. And it's all tied in with a sad story about the girl who died that day, or the funeral that we were at. But it was actually kind of, in my mind, kind of added to the legacy of this high school girl who passed away. It was at her funeral that I found out about it. So it was really neat I felt like she was a bridesmaid in my wedding, or a flower girl in my wedding. And so it was kind of neat I felt like she had passed this along to me, this story. So it was really amazing. And after I published the book, I put in a resolution through the Virginia General Assembly making her birthday Susanna Bowling Day. So Virginia has Susanna Bowling Day now on December 5th. Every year.
That is
so
very neat.
That's fun. And there's actually now a marker is going up on October 27th at 2:00 in front of the halfway house. There's going to be a historical marker for her.
That's amazing.
So
you're affecting history as well.
It's neat, but it's also neat of meeting and I'm sure you both have gone through this, of the people that you meet along the way of doing your research, whatever you're writing about, and finding a topic and that you all care about, and the friendships that come out of it is really neat, of people that I never thought an 85-year-old person here, and, a 30-year-old here, or whatever, who's interested in history, and that there's this common bond, and nobody cares about what kind of car you drive or anything. It's just, We all love
Mm.
history, or, the same with writing, of just that a common passion.
Yeah.
Right.
So it's really been, I feel very grateful to have kind of stumbled down this path.
Yeah. Well, you not only wrote about Susanna, you also wrote about Dolley Madison. Tell us about
Uh,
that book.
Well, that's funny because, as you can tell how much I love the Susanna story, I thought I'm
Mm.
never going to find another story I love as much as this. And my best friend is a writer and a big history buff too. And it was her birthday, and she said, "Oh, do you want to go to a talk on Dolley Madison?" And I thought, "No, I don't." And but it was her birthday, so I thought
Mm.
I'll go. And by the end of that lecture, I was like, "That's what I'm going to write about."
Mm.
And hearing about her. Um, bravery during the British advancing into Washington City, and she would sleep with a Tunisian saber underneath her bed in
Mm.
case they got through. And she was a Quaker. She was raised a Quaker. And so I was like, oh man, I love Dolly. So that's what, and you, as you know, it's, you really got to find a story that you love, because you're going to be with that story forever, really.
Right.
So each time I find another story, I just feel so grateful to have found one, because it's so much work, and it's such a slog at so many points that you've really got to love the story to keep going.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm curious as to how you market to middle grade readers.
That's a great question, and I am not trained in marketing at all.
Mm.
I kind of, to me, I just use common sense and a
Mhm.
lot of just, I just try something, it's, you boost on Facebook or this or that, but for me, a lot of it's public speaking and getting out
Mhm.
there. And, I started small, and now it's neat. I don't have to seek out the speaking opportunities so much because people will email me, and
That's
that's nice.
Mm.
Or, someone I met at, like, at a historical festival 3 years ago says, "I met you 3 years ago. Don't you remember me?" And I think, "No, I don't." But they'll say, "Hey, will you come visit my classroom, or will you come to my historical group?"
Mm.
So, what I want to say to everyone here who's starting out, maybe working on your first novel, is there's so much pressure on the first day, the first week, the first month, the first year. And for
Mm.
me, at least, I've found the more that time goes on, it builds on itself. And
Mm.
the day that you publish doesn't matter. It can be a fun day. It could be a character's birthday, or it can be, any way you want to tie it in. But it's a marathon. It's not a
Mm.
sprint. And
Mm.
I kind of wish I had known that, because it's so nerve-wracking at the beginning of, like, am I not doing this right? And have I closed all these opportunities? And I feel like, so many different things I say. I'm like Bob Ross. It's a happy accident of even writing historical fiction for kids, because
Mm.
it allowed me to go to all these historic places like Mount Vernon. My books sell like crazy there, and I
Yeah.
never envisioned that. And it was only after I published the book, I thought, well, gosh, I guess I'll mail them a copy. And they were like,
Mm.
sure, we'll try some. But it's neat of having that outlet, because I'm
Mm.
self-published.
Mhm.
So as a self-published author, if you're writing a contemporary women's novel, you can have a couple book signings in book clubs, but then it goes on Amazon, and it's really hard to stand out. So
Yeah.
that's what's helped me a lot, is that I am able to get it into all these different historical museums.
Mhm.
And even if I don't make a lot of money on selling each book, I look at it as kind of free advertising. It's, if someone
Right.
sees it on the shelf at Mount Vernon, or, I put a picture on Facebook of my book at first, my book at Mount Vernon, that's just wonderful. Plus, it's just
Mm.
a rush and an
Mm.
honor to
Right.
have my book in these places. And that's what's nice about middle grade, is I do school visits, but I also do like DARs and SARs and historical societies. And I love going to retirement homes and
Mhm.
speaking. And that I suggest to everyone out there who's writing, to both of you especially,
Yeah.
is people at retirement homes, the activities directors, they are looking for people who will come in and speak. And there's a lot of retired people who are writers, who are looking for
Mm.
guidance. And you could
Yeah.
say, this is my book, and this is what it's about, and this is how I got here. And it's
Mm.
it's kind of it's a fun thing, of finding a whole different audience.
Yeah.
And so I've
That's
really enjoyed that, of just getting out to, you know, just different places where I just didn't picture myself ever
Yeah.
being. And
Yeah. It's funny you say that about a retirement community because I wrote a book. It's contemporary romance.
Yeah.
I was invited to speak at a retirement community close to where I live. It was one of my biggest events. And
Mhm.
so yeah, it's hard to market yourself because, but if you want your story out there, you have to put yourself,
Right.
in opportunities. And so our podcast, we talk about all the things that we learned the hard way so you don't
Yeah.
have to. What is one of the things that you learned the hard way through your journey that you would want to share with our audience?
One is just trust your instincts. I've had friends, fellow authors who have fancy marketing degrees and they're doing things that I'm thinking, huh, I don't really get that. And just keep on keeping on of just, this is what I'm doing. This is working for me. If that works for them, that's great. But realizing we're all struggling and some people are able to project more confidence and
Mhm.
that doesn't necessarily, I don't know, it doesn't necessarily all pan out. We're all trying things, but if your gut instinct or your personality is like, I had a friend said, "Why do you do all these book signings? Why do you go to all these little bookstores? And you're too good of a speaker for that." And I thought, I like it. I enjoy it. I like meeting people. And because when I go to these book signings, I'll meet people and they'll say, "Hey, will you come speak at my event?" Or I just get a compliment or something, or my friends show up and it just helps me the next week when I'm sitting here in my dirty yoga pants trying to write and I've got that community bolstering me. But if that's not your thing, that's what I thought in your recent podcast you were talking about is finding out what your thing is and where are your boundaries of what you enjoy and what you don't enjoy. And
Yeah.
let's face it, we're not all in this for the big bucks. So figuring out what brings you joy to the point where you think, oh my gosh, I can't believe I call this work. I can't
Mm.
believe I, sort of get paid for this. And that's why we're all doing it.
Yeah.
So focusing on that and, it's okay to be happy with what you're doing. And sometimes things are, that's the other thing is sometimes things are just a slow build and you think there is nothing going on. I've got nothing planned for the next 3 months. And all of a sudden in one day, you can get 5 emails from someone and you just never know what's around the corner. And it's just, you gotta just keep chugging,
Yeah.
One of my favorite lines from my father, I was going to an REO Speedwagon concert when I was in 9th grade. And he said, "Lib, just keep moving. Some crazy people are going to come up and try to talk to you. They're going to try to stop you. Just keep moving." And
Yeah.
I think about it all the time. Just keep moving. And, don't be afraid to fail. You're going to try different marketing things. You're going to think, oh my gosh, I never want to go to another retirement home again. That's fine. But if you just try it once. And if you don't like it, you don't like it. But what I like about this is this experience has stretched me into so many different things. I remember thinking, Venmo, I can't sign up for Venmo. I don't know how to do Venmo. And then I think, oh my gosh, but it's like forced me, each little thing has kind of forced me. I can't do a presentation. I don't know how to do a PowerPoint. And then now I'm like, I can put one together in my sleep. So that's what makes it fun and challenging of this profession that we're all in of there's so many different things that you feel like you should be doing. And that's what's so pick and choose what works for you. Your skill set, your time, your just enjoyment level. So, but it's not easy either. And that's if people think, oh, all these people on Facebook look like they're having such a great time. Trust me, a lot of it's smoke and mirrors out there
Yeah.
too.
Yeah. It certainly is a lot of work. And as our mutual friend Grace Salmon always says, she takes spaghetti and throws it at the wall to see what sticks.
Excellent. Excellent. And, Grace is so good about, she really kind of takes the time to enjoy each moment and
Yeah.
treats people in such a special manner and makes
Mhm.
us all feel so special. That's part
Yeah.
of it too, is cultivating these relationships. When you call a bookstore and you talk to the person who answers the phone and you start talking to them about your book, gosh, if you're really nice to them, there's a
Yeah.
much better chance your book's going to end up on their shelves than if you're not. And that's just
Absolutely.
the way the world works.
Yeah. I'm curious, how you started Bookish Road Trip. So for our audience members, Bookish Road Trip is an online Facebook community of over 5,000 members now. So we've grown a lot and we're strong. And Libby is one of the founding members. So maybe you can just tell us a little bit about how you put this baby together during COVID.
Oh gosh, well, I can't take much credit for it. Really, it was really Mary Sheriff and Julie were just absolutely, the brainchildren, and Melissa Face and I, the four of us did it together. But those two were really, they were the visionaries with it. And we all live in the Richmond, Virginia area, which helped. So we were able to get together a few times and kind of map things out. And, Julie had, the whole blackboard filled up with ideas. And so a lot of it too was trial and error. And kind of even building a community for ourselves during the pandemic when it was kind of, everybody was kind of flailing and easy to feel lonely. So it was really a nice, it was just a nice grounding place for the four of us to work together and kind of throw spaghetti at the wall, as Grace would say.
Yeah. Were all of you authors at that point trying to market books, or were you readers?
We all had books. We were all authors. I think Melissa's book, I Love You More Than Coffee, I think was coming out in a few months. And then Mary's book was about to come out. So Mary was the one who started it. It's kind of started off originally just as a marketing group of how could we, this whole big group of people, how could we all pull together and help help each other market our books. And then this kind of the Bookish Road Trip came out of that. And then a lot of people were like, "Ooh, this is a lot of work. See you later." And the group kind of narrowed. And then we were like, "Okay, everybody in, like, buckle up." And that's where that came from. Really, it was buckle up. Here we go. And we did a lot of experimentation. But it was a lot of work and very time consuming. And I know for you, what I've heard is it's been whittled down a lot, where it's everybody's got their specific part and it's not so time consuming. But
well, we thank you for laying the roadmap that Donna and I are on currently. So we could sit here and talk all day because you are fascinating. Your subject matter is fascinating as well. And it's not just for middle grades. I mean, adults, I know that you say that you have a ton of adults who read these books, but what is your next project? Before we go, I want to hear all about what you're working on next, because you find women.
Yeah, I'm moving on to the next war, the Civil War. And there was a woman named Elizabeth Van Loo who lived in Richmond, and she was amazing. She was a Union Spymistress, and she coordinated this whole big network of spies and coordinated a jailbreak of 159 different prisoners from Libby Prison, which was the prison for the Union prisoners of war, where the conditions were horrible. And by the end of the war, she was reporting directly to General Grant. He was down in City Point, Virginia, and she was able to get her messages to they would leave her house first thing in the morning, and she would have a daily report, that day's newspaper, and fresh flowers from her garden. And those gardens would arrive in time to be on General Grant's dinner table that night. So she was absolutely amazing. She was very wealthy, so she was able to use her social standing and her wealth to fund things and to avoid some of the suspicion. But she really paid for it after the war ended, and people in Richmond realized that all their suspicions were true, and she was completely ostracized. So she was just a woman with just iron will and iron character, just incredible. So it's been an honor. I've learned so much about the Civil War. I wish I hadn't slept through the Civil War in high school history class when the projector went on, but I did. So it's been, and learning about what Richmond was like during the Civil War has just blown my mind, of the starvation and the overcrowding and the inflation. I just had no idea.
It's so cool that you're learning something about where you live too.
It is really, that's especially with this Richmond book. It's like what happened in front of Capitol Square, where I've been a million times. And I think, oh my gosh, that's where these society women were toasting to the Virginia seceding from the Union. They were toasting with champagne. And then 4 years later, they were sitting under these same trees, huddled in the middle of the night because they had lost their homes in the fire, and they were homeless. It's like, oh my gosh, it's just epic of 4 years. So, and then I'm hoping the next book, I'm thinking about doing Abigail Adams, and I grew up in that area. So that'll be really neat to be able to go up to Boston and do research up there for places that I never bothered to go when I was a kid, because I was never really interested in history back then. So
I love the fact that you are showcasing strong women in history that probably was not taught to us. At least our generation. So as a mother of a daughter, I cannot thank you enough. And I can't wait to I'm actually going to buy your book today, because I have to, Susanna, she is, I'm very inspired by her, but I know our audience, they're going to want to follow you on social media, maybe check out your website, which is fantastic, by the way. Where can they find you?
My website is libbymcnamee.com, and my Facebook is Libby McNamee author, all one word. And same for my Instagram is the same. And then I'm also on LinkedIn and Goodreads as well. So thank you so much.
Yes.
Thank you so much for being here.
We are so happy. And Donna, could you tell us about our next episode?
I sure can. Our next episode is going to be leveraging a successful career through PR services. So we're going to have 2 PR people that will be interviewing to give you all the tips you need if you're interested in some public relations.
Well, Libby, thank you again. And Donna,
thank you.
And everyone, thank you so much for joining us. And until next time.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us today. I'm Hope Gibbs.
And I'm Donna Norman Carbone. It's time for you to get to work.
We look forward to seeing you in 2 weeks with another tip from your author friends.